Hi there, I'm Dani Henderson, and my guest today is the one and only Tony Rodrigues. Hello, Tony.
Hi, Danny. Good afternoon. And hello, everybody. Thanks for having me back.
It's always great to have you back, very much so. And there's so many different topics that we could discuss, given the background that you have in the satanic field, military and galactic field, and your books. The first one here will raise Ceres Colony Cavalier. As I was telling you, I was doing the ugly cry at the airport the other day, reading an experience you had with a group of military on Ceres, the star planetoid Ceres, and you were used as a slave there. And for those that have never seen you or never watched this channel, I'll go into more detail. But basically, you had just been treated like a dog turd. From being kidnapped by a satanic family, sold into the military. This is the Earth military, ladles and jelly beans, the Earth, tons of these different programs, abducting children like Tony and torturing them to the point of death, using them in ways you couldn't even imagine. But you are now a grown man, you are working in the cargo bay area on a ship on Ceres, and the captain comes in and tells everyone at all the different levels and layers of the military, oh my God, I just want to cry again, that if you hadn't been a slave, you wiped the floor with them all. You were the biggest, the brightest, and the best. And I was walking around the airport, like I told you, doing the ugly cry. And part of me was just so hurt because I love you so much and I know you personally, and so hurt at what you'd gone through. And yet inside I was like, yes, yes, that you'd been recognized, and that gave you value and gave you worth. And because you'd had everything stripped away from you. I mean, how does that make you feel, just going back to that memory?
I had forgotten. So the book, wow, you're gonna make me cry, and I'm not gonna let you.
Go on.
Wow, it's like I can feel the emotion that you're giving me here. So
Mm.
whatever, I was always told, taught by my parents to not be boastful. Nobody likes a bragger. Nobody likes a liar. That's what my dad always told me from when I was this high, all the time, millions of times. Nobody likes a bragger. Nobody likes a liar. That's what. And so when these parts were parts of the story where I did well and got recognized for it, I always kind of, don't talk about much, but they're part of the story. And the reason being is that the captain and I became friends after that, and it's like it's relative to how everything played out. But I had forgotten, so I wrote the book after telling the story hundreds of times on YouTube. It took me 6 years to get the book out. Once I wrote the book, now I'm kind of free to talk about other things when I do interviews, and I say, oh, it's in the book when people mention it. So I don't even really think about the story. It's like a long, oh, that's right, that did happen. When you wrote me the other day, you said the page number. He said, Tony, I'm having a cry. I'm so happy to see how they saw you on your page number. I was just reading your book, and it looked, and I was out and about. I think I was camping or somewhere. I forget where I was. And I finally got to a book and read it. And I went, oh, wow, I'd forgotten. Wow, I forgot that was even in the book. It was like, but that was real. So on the ship prior to that one, I worked on two ships, starships from the Ceres Colony Corporation during my time. And this would have been in the 90s. The time was in the 90s. The first ship was a very old submarine that was converted into a spaceship, and it was a piece of crap. And we eventually decommissioned, and I got badly injured on one of the missions. I had no idea where we were, what we were doing, but apparently it was a combat situation. And they needed a valve turned that was always sticking, and I crawled up in the valve housing and pried it loose, and I got badly burnt. I got very badly, very, very badly burnt. And they took me and had better medical technology and fixed me. They said that because of the situation, that they actually spent the money to have me completely restored. They were going to leave. They said that normally people would have been left disfigured from that. So because of that, if I were an enlisted person in their military, I would have qualified for a medal, one of their highest medals. And but because I was slave labor, I wasn't qualified for that. So that caught the captain's eye, and he handpicked me to, that's how I got my promotion to be cargo engineer on the next. So that ship on that mission was the very last mission. They decommissioned that ship afterwards because it was in a combat, it failed. And so we waited. There was many months before the next ship was ready, and I got trained to be a cargo engineer. I was promoted, and it was something fell. And it was at that meeting, it was at one of the briefings before the ship left the dock. So we were meeting the new staff, and he went around the table and asked everybody, you know, why are you here? And they would say what they did, and why are you here? And when he got to me, he said, you're not even qualified to be here. He read my report. He said, they even knew about the time in Seattle where I was used as a sex slave. It was in my report on Ceres, like that everything that I went through on Earth in those 20 years was in my report. And he read the report, and they all like they're talking 12 or 14 guys around a big table in a briefing room. And he said that, I wasn't qualified for my position, but then he went around the table and he said, do you know anybody that's, I forget what they call it, the Medal of Honor, the Bundeswehr, that's a German word. He said, does anybody here qualified for one of those medals? And everybody went, they said, you were, sir. And a couple guys had medals. They said, well, I have the so-and-so medal. And he said, yeah, but are you qualified for this, for the Bundes, I want to look it up, Bundes something, the Medal of Honor and Merit of Honor or something. And he said, if he wasn't a slave, he would outrank all of you here. You would all be saluting him. And that's why he's here. It's not because you're qualified for the job. It's because you're qualified to be of the highest rank here. And I expect great things out of you. I expect you to do well. And I was scared because of that. You know what I mean? Like it was a lot of pressure. Everybody else was like educated. I didn't go through training, and I was, it's not like I went to college or something. You know what I mean? Like I had been tortured through my childhood and was actually crippled, handicapped from what I'd been through. And for him to say that, and then afterwards, because of that, because he I don't know if you've read farther in the book, but he and the other captains were in a fraternity that was like a religion, and they believed people that experienced something like that, like I don't want to say sacrificing themselves for the in a combat situation, like there's a criteria, combat situation, like sacrificing your life for the betterment of everybody else, that it was a karmic path that their religion basically worshipped, that anybody did that he's like, if you weren't a slave, you could be was a secret society that they all had, that they believed in a deity even, and it was an atheistic society. And he said, if you weren't a slave, you could be one of us too. So he would always hold me after the meetings once in a while, and I would talk to him. So I was greatly honored, and I felt special that the captain liked me, and him and I would sit and talk in the mornings. Sometimes when there was time, he'd say, hey, well, I want to talk to you. And I would sit and talk to him for 15 or 20 minutes. And then I'd have to go to my post. So it was like, of everybody that didn't like me or kicked me or picked on me because I was a slave, I was actually slave. So, and I wore a collar and a suit that identified it in that society. So I either got disregarded or even actively attacked by people, to have the captain, somebody that was in charge of everybody, treat me like I was a friend, treat me like, we were buds. And he even said, in another circumstance, we would be friends. He said, me and you would be friends if in a different situation, we would be good friends. And so that was a big deal to me back then emotionally. And it's something that I never really talked about since you brought it up, since we wrote it in the book. I think it was the last time I talked about it when we were editing the book a couple years ago. So thanks for that.
Well, thank you, and I'm glad, and it was worth doing the in public ugly cry. I couldn't have cared less who was there. It hit me so hard that I was so happy for my friend, and knowing, and this book, it's just such an emotional journey. and it so represents the slavery, the dystopian, the tyrannical elements that have existed off planet that are very much planned for this planet, and with everyone fighting and attacking and showing their wounds, and we're all attacking the wrong people, right? This ego, this need to be, on the platform, the best at, my evidence is better than your evidence. And, and then the evil reptilians who are filled with demons, Klaus Schwab, Bill Gates, those despots, those tyrannical deadheads, they're laughing at all of us. It's like, as predicted, idiots in the disclosure community. Oh, they're so close to disclosing everything, but they just can't stop fighting. Their egos will keep them low, and then we'll capture them, and then we'll enslave them. Now, we're going to go into a couple of things here today, because Tony, I've told you, and I'll say it again, stand publicly and say this: you're one of the single most important people, in my opinion, and the opinion of many others, on screen and in the background. Today, 2023, in disclosure, there are 3 elements that you cross that most people do not, even in their fantasies and their meditations, and they are the following. The Earth military. You have been responsible for bringing forward information on the depraved, cruel, torturous, the fact that we humans are treated like rats in a lab. This elite group of people that call themselves that, they see us as nothing more than scum. They don't care. They've just done ritual sacrifice on one of the beautiful islands, as we know. We're not going to get too deep into that today. And so when we know that, and they show us how they treat us, and you in particular have brought forth information, I really want people to get it. They got to get it. Stop fighting. Because Tony has lived what they want us to live, and it's no joke, and it's not funny. And I think I want you to go into more of the description of like what that kind of enslaved life looks like. We are going to cover some Mars colony, because there are people out there putting shit out, lies. And I so want the people to go like, this is Tony Rodrigues. He's actually been there. He can name the military departments. He can tell you what the atmosphere is like, what the beings look like. He's not a fantasist. Know where your source of the information is. So could you, it's so hard to go into some of this intel though. Could you, when you were kidnapped by the satanic family, or the Illuminati family, or the Luciferian worshipping family, and if people don't know, the people that run your planet, their almighty God is Satan. And it's no joke. It's not funny. It's Satan, all of them. Almighty God, it's Satan they're worshipping. That's it, pure and simple. So Tony, you were kidnapped you were taken because of a decision made by a satanic man. And tell us about when you were taken to Seattle and started out life in a dog cage, and just a little bit of what that went on to, please.
Okay, so right into the deep end. The very first, when I was taken, I was put through the 20-year tour, career return program, whatever you want to call it, whatever they call it these days. Keeps changing. They abducted me. Somebody I went to school with, his father, he said his father was an Illuminati. And when his dad came in and was the judge at the science fair, the boy pointed me out. We didn't get along, put it that way. The boy had a really kind of an abrasive personality. He was very brilliant, very smart kid. And he was abrasive, and I was also abrasive. I was a cocky kid. And so I picked on him, and he picked on me. There was a rivalry. So he pointed me out to his dad. And this was on a Wednesday, and the following night, on a Thursday night, I was taken. I had ETs in my room and took me and put me through what is commonly referred to as the 20 and back. When I woke up, I was in an air base in a portables in Inyokern, and I went through a trauma-based mind control program. And I guess that was between April and January, April and December of 82. Then there was a short stint where I was taken to Seattle. There was an underground train that took me to Montana, and then his wife picked me up and drove me to their house in Seattle. She put me I was there for a few days, but I stayed in a dog kennel in the laundry room. And she would come by and feed me a sandwich and let me go to the bathroom and then put me right back in there. And then one day she took off and went and picked up her husband. She had to drive, and she was gone for 2 days. They left me I was in the kennel. She left me some water, and they came back with 2 other kids and her husband, whom I've found, which these are real people. These are real people, and people think that I enabled them by not saying their names publicly, but I have turned their names over to people in the military and researchers, the people that are appropriate. So then they let me out of the cage when the other kids were there. They cleaned me up, and I had a place downstairs to sleep. They had a big downstairs. It was a giant house, and myself and another boy and another girl. And then they were doing rituals. They did satanic rituals at night, and one of them they had us in, and we witnessed. There was a dead body, and they were drinking blood and doing that. And he referred to us. First thing he said when they brought me in, and he said, "Are you shocked by what you're seeing?" He's wearing like a Baphomet hat, but stark butt naked, with a helmet on. Looks like a Baphomet. And then the 2 girls, his wife and another girl, one had like a horse head. They're all naked, and I was a kid with an IV bag in. They gave me an IV, and I walked in, and there's a dead body there. And he looked down at me, and he was very matter of fact. It was like hanging out with somebody tailgating, like he was a very cheery. He was completely unconcerned with the fact that he just murdered a young boy. And he said, "Are you shocked by what you see?" And I said, "Why did you do that?" And he asked me about God. Do you believe in God? He said, "Pray to your God to come and save you now. Pray to your God to come and set you free." And like he was bullying me in a spiritual way. And I knew at the time, it's weird, as a kid, I was a 10-year-old kid. And I knew at the time that I was just not versed. I knew that he was wrong. And I knew that if I had the right words, I would eat him alive in a debate. And he was debating me, and it was unfair because he, you know what I'm saying? He knew better than that. And I knew that one day I would have the words, but I just didn't have the words. I didn't know what to say. But I knew that there were correct words. If you understand what that feeling is like. And I was just angry on the inside. I was just super angry because I knew that I was powerless against somebody that I felt was mentally lesser than me. Somebody that was spiritually lesser and morally lesser is what I felt by. I felt that he was a piece of shit, but I was a kid and he was a grown man, and there was nothing I could do to put him in its place. And that was the feeling. So he said that I was going to participate in their little ritual, or I was going to go up on the table next to him. He said, you can either, it was a communion ritual. So I've done a lot of research since getting my memories back. And the whole world was cannibalistic at one point, ritually cannibalistic. So there's a thing there. There's more to it than what we think it is. I think a lot of spiritual practice, a lot of the ways that the universe works, like I think when a human dies, there's a different phenomenon that happens than when an animal or an insect dies. I think that humans have a lot of consciousness, and when it's released, there's a glitch kind of in the reality, and they are aware of this and use it as a technology. That's what a lot of this human sacrifice was. But he said that I had to participate in what was going on, or I was going to go right up on the table next to him. He said, I got no problem putting you right there and killing you right now. You're either going to do that, or do you want to die right now? Make up your mind. I only have a minute. And the girl, I went in last, the girl who was my age, blonde-haired girl, said, just do it. She said, I did it. Nothing bad happened. Because I was kind of pausing. I was, like I said, I felt in my heart that I didn't know what to say. So I was delaying as, maybe as a form of a protest, because I didn't have the words to say. So I just sat there silent. He was asking me to do things, and I just was like, I don't know. I didn't know what to do. And she said, just do it. We did it. Nothing bad happened. Just go ahead. And so I did. And then they took us outside and they put us on each, took us outside of that room to the next room, like a living room. And it was like at the time, it was it was like paneling walls and um, shaggy brown carpet with a red carpet. Um, and it was like a late 70s, it was a 70s decor. And he had a bunch of stuff piled up in the room. It wasn't fancy. It was a dusty basement. And but they had rooms, they put us out and had tables that they put us on. And then they administered some drug. The girl went out first and started talking. They gave her the dose first, whatever it was, and she started just talking crazy. Like she was saying things, I'm Pepper Potts, I'm so and so. She was saying things loud, and they were like, okay, we need you to tell us. They started questioning her, and then the boy, they put him out next, and he just said a few things, and that was it. And then I went out. And I lost consciousness. So the technology they were doing was drugging us kids to near death. And during that time, they were getting channeled information. He was asking business information. Who knows what they were asking? But they were getting accurate channel information. So that was an industrial grade channeling. I've since found some other evidence about companies, institutes that were researching ESP that said I lost the video, it's buried somewhere, but they had it back in the late 70s. They were all having a convention, and on video, one of the guys said, we've had startling results with children and near-death experiences, and we're going to look into this further. And they were all cheering, and they had a drink. It was a conference on psychic research, and so more to that to come. But what I'm saying is it all ties together. This is all stuff that I looked at. It was very hard for me to unpack when I got my memories back. So imagine waking up one day and remembering experiencing that, how hard it would be to deal with that. It was very hard. And so I researched it. I've been always researching, like, how does this exist? And the thing is, they don't see us. They see us as cattle. They see us as sheep. They see us. He said his name, and I said, don't you want to know my name? I said something like, I don't remember exactly how it came out, but I said, don't you want to know what's my name? And he said, it doesn't matter what your name is. You're the dead. You are the dead. I said, I'm not dead. He said, you're all dead. You're all the dead. Everybody, I am alive. I'm the only one that's alive. You're all the dead. And if you look in a lot of media, if you look in a lot of movies where they all of a sudden suddenly have a bunch of dead people, like that's what that is. That's what they mean. That's the subversive plot when they have a zombie movie, that the zombies are people like me and you, and they're the ones that are alive that are doing the plot of the movie. They own everything and they control. Let's just burn this building down and it's ours. Do you understand? Like, that's the subversive plot. They see these people in this fraternity, they see themselves as the only ones that are alive, and everybody else, the common folk, are dead. Mm-hmm. They're just the dead. And so that's how they feel about us. That's exactly how they feel about us. And that's what's going on in the world right now. These people are making decisions based on using us as a crop and not as neighbors, not as peers. So
yeah, it's so much. And again, it's so important that people get into the information if they really want to educate themselves on the reality. And they start to put things together really fast now, really, really fast, and stop pulling people into different corners. And people, one of the things I think people really need to get, and that my prayer for everybody is, please, it doesn't matter what someone's been through. If you haven't done your own journey, no one's going to help you. You've got to go through your own, watershed healing. You can be with 3 people, you can be best friends, you can be bitching and moaning and complaining and trying to build something yourselves. But those other 2 people are still going to be forced into their own rebirth, into their own awakening. We're all going through it. So the less we start all, ganging together and having all this negative, it's not helping, because again, like I said at the top, you got Klaus Schwab, Bill Gates. Now, if you look at Bill Gates, I used to be so terrified to say the names. I don't care anymore. I don't care, because now we know exactly what they're doing. I didn't have the courage. I danced around it. No more. And if you look at him as an intergenerational monster, his parents, his grandparents, it's all there. They don't hide it, they didn't hide it, and it's in your face. And they want the demise of all of us. That's why we got to stop fighting and start standing and pushing forward now, like now. There are some myths, and the book again was so disturbing, but I do encourage people to read it. The cloning. Now, you as a little boy and other little children, you were chained up, you were had collars on, mercilessly electrocuted. You were put into the middle of a room, a staging area at a party, and all these people were invited. The landed gentry, the wealthy, the beautiful, the famous, and they would come and choose a boy or a girl and do whatever they wanted. One of the things that I wanted to ask you, those people that came to that party, many of those parties that guy had on his island, many of those people had been told that you were clones, that you were just clones. You weren't human, you weren't real. They could do whatever they wanted with you. Now it wasn't true. It was agony for you. It was physical agony.
So I want to say this, that even if there was cloning, there's a lot of science here that is just like way off the charts of anything that we learn in the mainstream in college, whatever. So whatever I went through, the science involved is advanced, very advanced. So if there was cloning involved, it doesn't matter because I retain the memories. So if I wasn't cloned, and so William Tompkins says it is a chemical process. Dr. Sells provided information, great research on the human genome having like a reset switch where you can reverse age. And so if it was me and I was reverse aged and put back in time and picked up at 10 years old, that's fine. But I may have been a clone, so I don't know exactly what happened. So if they cloned me and my consciousness was in the clone, that was there too. But what I'm saying is it doesn't matter because here I am myself in 2023 and I have the memories of what happened. So that means that there's no moral escape from what they were doing about either erasing my memory, saying it's okay, we can torture you, you're not going to remember it, or saying it's okay, it's just a clone, it's not a real person. It doesn't matter because I have the memories right now. So that means that I as a citizen am entitled to human rights as we all are. And so they were stepped on, and they're trying to subvert your human rights one way or another. But it doesn't matter because I have the memories and have shared them. So yeah, whatever these people are feeling justified to do what they wanted to do to somebody or me is irrelevant because here I am years later with the full memory of what happened. If that makes sense.
Yeah, and again, I really want people to understand that we don't have all the information until we come across somebody like you, and the way that you wrote from the heart, from your memories, the actual physical tortures that you and the other children went through, that we then can grab the idea that even though you're told it's a clone, it has no feelings, it's nothing, it's a sex toy, it's a doll. That's not true. It's not true. Right. So to those out there who are still doing that, to little ones, and if you're told, oh, it's a clone, the child feels everything, the adult feels everything, and they're coming for you. No one is going to get rewritten, no one is going to be erased. Everyone who's done everything to everyone, everyone's going to stand. And it's not going to be God in the clouds that stands judging. Let's get away from that.
No.
Okay.
So I want to say this, that mankind is changing. There's great evidence that people today are spiritually way more powerful than they were 30, 40 years ago. So there's evidence like mankind, the mentality of mankind is changing. The kids today are aware of many things. So ultimately, we are part of a mass consciousness that all participates with each other. And so there's no cloning or watering it down and taking advantage of one. So these people, like you said, these people are doing this, they think they have a free pass, and there's not. Everything that's stolen eventually in a mass consciousness has to be repaid. Everything that gets taken must be repaid one way or another. And so they're just fooling themselves, as all the Satanists are, all the service to self, people that are very polarized service to self, they're just delaying they're just acquiring debt. They're delaying it, and they are going to have to pay it back. And because of entropy of the universe, they're going to pay it with interest. So I really believe this. It's a shortcut. All shortcuts are not what they seem to be.
Yeah, you're
Sorry,
right.
that's my
Yeah,
brum,
no.
bum, bum.
No, one of the things that I want to see immediately now, I wanted it to happen 20 years ago. I want all the images of Jesus Christ dead and hanging on a cross to be taken down across the planet, because that is signaling obedience and to Satan, that he won. And as a
Right.
child, I remember seeing Jesus on the cross. And it could have been the Prophet Muhammad. It doesn't matter. We're raised in these different systems of religion. But when I saw Jesus Christ on the cross, it did something really unnatural inside my body. It disturbed me. It disturbed my mind. And I used to worry about all the other little children that would see that image, but then cut to Bambi, the mother dies, Dumbo, he loses his mother, she gets taken away. All these terrible early childhood things, these early childhood traumas. So if we're not getting physically, harmed in some way, they're going to get us mentally really, really young. And again, it's
They're
time
trying
to
to
pull
make
it.
they're
Go
trying to
ahead.
make people believe that bad things are going to happen, that horrible things are inevitable. So,
Yeah.
and in a child's mind, that is very powerful in manifesting what it's going to live through. To do that really is a big problem. I felt the same thing. I know exactly what you're talking about. That the whole crucifixion thing really bothered me too. I was like, why are they showing it then? I remember saying to myself, like, why are they even showing us this? They can mention it, and it doesn't have to be the whole show.
Mhm.
And anyhow, so I didn't mean to.
Yeah. No, just, I mean, I'm not Christian. I'm a reverend. I've been a reverend since 2004, licensed reverend in California, and I only did that to marry gay people. And don't you be judging people on my watch. If they love each other, who are you to judge? But I do love, I have my own personal relationship with the Christ, because I met him when I was 7 in my room. It's in my book that's coming out today. But anyway, I it's just so important that we don't have to be attached to a religion. We can demand to change everything, change the iconography of the past, change the programming of the past. So okay, moving along, let's jump to Mars, because you've done that so many times.
Let's
Can you
just
take
jump to Mars then.
Let's just jump to Mars, darling.
Let's
Let's
just jump
just,
there.
well, how are we going to get there?
Let's just
somebody
jump.
Somebody believes that Mars is actually under Area 51. What do you say to that?
You mean the whole planet? The whole planet's down there? It's fake. You mean the Mars that I've been looking through with my telescope for the last 8 years is not real? The big round planet with the ice caps that you can see with your human eye in the sky, that is predictable where it's going to be. I mean, that's under Area 51. It's a tough sell. So
Yeah.
no, it's a very big place. It's obvious. We have a lot of things. You can see it with your own two eyes, your own one eye, and your two eyes if you want to buy a very expensive telescope. But you can see Mars, and it's exactly like that. And Andrew Bashago says there's jump rooms that go there. I didn't take a jump room. I took a ride. You know what was neat? I want to say something this. In the beginning, so 2015, I got my memories back. I started emailing Dr. Sala, and he asked me, he said, so you went to Mars after the moon. How'd you get there? And I said, it was on a bigger craft. And this is a long memory ago. So it was on a bigger craft. And he said, how long did it take? And I said, no, I can't tell you that. I don't know. I don't know what happened. I just remember like waking up in orbit. I remember we took off from the moon. We flew out, and then something happened. And I don't remember exactly how long it was. I was maybe 18 hours, 20 hours. Honestly, I have no idea. And but then we were in orbit. When we got into orbit, we were not cleared for landing. We stayed in orbit for like 2 or 3 hours, 4 hours maybe, that we couldn't land. The ship didn't have, like an airplane that's the bad weather and it flies around weights. We were in orbit for a long time. And but anyhow, this is what's cool is that years later, fast forward, JP comes on and says that he went to Mars on a mission. He said, no, they put you to sleep. The ship puts you to sleep. So you don't know how long you go. Everybody on the ship sleeps. As soon as they leave the moon, there's a switch they hit, and they induce sleep. And in my book, I talk about on Mars colony when that was actually one of the best living quarters I ever had in my 20 years, was the Mars colony one, because I had my own apartment. I had my own bathroom. That was really a huge luxury for that. But they induced sleep. When I got done with class, I went back to my room. I had 30, there was food waiting for me. There was a tray of food waiting for me in my living room. I had a little tiny apartment, little like a studio. There was a tray of food there, and I would eat. I had 30 minutes, and the clock would tell me, and I had to go to sleep. If I didn't lay in bed, I would wake up on the floor. There was a box. There was a technology that they just flipped the switch and you went to sleep, and then you woke up when in the next morning. So that was something that JP said after never hearing anything that I said. So when he said that the ship, I went, "Oh God, that's what happened." Anyhow, that was a super neat thing, and I love all of JP's information, his info that comes out. There have been multiple times he said things that I remember experiencing out there as well, that there are little nuanced things that nobody else talks about. So JP's the real deal to me all day long.
Again, finding people with real-time evidence that can prove and back up. I don't just mean one story. The thing is, if someone's just got one story, their story is important to them. I saw a UFO, or I was on a UFO, or I went here, or, but I'm not saying they're a one-trick pony either, because everyone that brings a story forward has a value if it's true, of course, only if it's true, because this is the reality. This is the Star Trek present future that we're in. We're not holding, back from that anymore. But someone like JP has been able to validate the gaseous atmospheres around Jupiter and Ganymede. And when he came on Dr. Sala's show, because he's known Dr. Sala since 2008, he's active duty military. He's given the green light to come out. We never see his face, although you and I have met him in person. He brings information, and he was able to validate, I think it was Jean-Charles and Alex Collier and Elena Danan, and there was enormous amount of emotion from those beloveds that JP was telling the truth as an army earth person, and then the same with you. JP has validated information that you brought in your books and earlier, and we need that. And there's so many other things that, as we give everything we have to the public, which is our duty, they're going to see themselves, the public. Oh, I remember 3 years ago when so-and-so said this, and now Tony said that. Here's the link, here's the proof, because proof is everything. Physical evidence, places, whatever. It's just so relevant.
Overlap. I want to say this, that in the beginning, we were getting people that came forward. There was one that was very, influential. And I believe we were getting testimonies after the 2014, 2015, because we had early whistleblowers come out with the real evidence that they wanted to get in front of it. They said, "Oh God." So we had whistleblowers come out and give us 90% of the truth and 10% of lies. And with the 10% of lies, they led everybody away from everybody else. They said, "No, don't listen to them," because those 10% of too good to be true lies took everybody, and then they ran it over a cliff. And so now people are kind of lost interest in the real disclosure of the secret space program. But the reality is it's still just as relevant, even more relevant now than it ever was. Now we're getting, so they were giving us the truth and then 10% of lies to sway us away. But now, because people like JP, people like Elena Danan, Jean-Charles Moyen, myself, people that have come forward, and many others, and I'm sorry if I'm leaving anybody else, there have been some really good testimonies that come out. Now they're giving us 10% of the truth and 90% lies, because they're desperate.
Oh yeah.
Because so much has come out now. And nowadays, if you're somebody new that sees this info and you get your memories back, you're brand new, it's very hard for you to come with anything new that's provable, that's relevant. So it's very hard to be somebody that's going to get ushered to the front of the platforms, because everybody's already disclosed. We've really already disclosed 99% of everything that goes on in our, what's going on up there. It's hard to bring new information, and that's the challenge. So everybody's got a piece of the puzzle. There's so many people that have great info, but if, like it's already been said before, it doesn't matter. We already know that there are discs. I don't have to care. Your sighting of a disc is completely irrelevant. We all know they're just, we all know they're a tic tac craft. We have video of it now. So if you say, hey, I saw a craft in my yard last night, people expect kind of some kind of, some kind of attention on it, but it's kind of old news. So you have to have something new nowadays. And I think that lack of attention for old news is really kind of pissing people off. They see something and they go, hey, I saw it too. And they want to be heard.
Yeah.
But really, it's all, and we're getting a ton of lies. Like I said, nowadays we're getting the people that are 90% lies and 10% truth. And they go, well, what about this? He said this is true. And I go, yeah, but look at the other stuff that he purposely lied about on purpose. Also, Dani, I know you're itching to get to the next question. I can see it.
Oh, that's good. Darling, it's all
But I
about
want to say
you.
this. Thanks. No, it's us. Gosh, I forgot what I was going to say. So about the 90% lies. So the other thing is that what I look for now when I deal with anybody that comes forward and talks to me, and this is kind of a life strategy. So I'm like this my whole entire life. Like you can make mistakes talking to me all day long. You can say yesterday, you can say, I think I walked a mile from my house. And then you can say today, it must have been 10 miles. And that's a mistake. That's not an intentional lie. So you can make mistakes all day long. Oh yeah, no, I thought it was last week. No, you said it was Tuesday last week. Yeah, okay, maybe it's Tuesday. Let me check. Like it comes out, if you really flesh it out, it's technically a lie. But if it's a mistake, it's one thing. But somebody that intentionally plans, when you say, how far was it? And they go, it was 10 miles. And they intentionally know that it was 1 mile. Do you understand? I'm just making up a small, but somebody that knows consciously that they're giving you the wrong answer and they're intentionally lying. And we're seeing those people, and it's obvious, and people are not catching on. This kind of pisses me off, and I'm using strong language.
Go ahead.
People see an intentional lie and ignore that and still listen to the BS because there's one intentional truth. Because of that 10% of truth, they're going, well, he said this is true. I know it's true. I'm like, but he intentionally lied about this. So as soon as I see an intentional lie, I'm out of there. I'm done with 100% of it. So that's a big deal.
I think one of the easy ways, and again, I keep saying it, and I think I'm going to keep saying it until whenever, because I think we have a duty to. But for me, when someone's telling their story and somebody really has a truth, you can feel it. There's an emotion to it. There's a resonance with it. There's a frequency. You can see someone's mannerisms, their eyes, their animation. You can tell we're so gifted as humans. We're so brilliant. We can tell a fake smile, because we see this is a fake smile, like just, but when we put our whole selves into it, there's an emotion that comes from the heart, and humans are so brilliant. We can feel it without seeing it sometimes. There's an energetic connection, a response, a hierarchical essence, and then we can feel the depth of the negative in people, and sometimes people choose to ignore it. Then they might get a sensation in the gut, when they know they shouldn't be ignoring it, but they so want to like that person and blah, blah, blah. But it's going back to your point of origin with everyone you see. How do they make you feel? How do they deliver information? Are they just ramming it hard and fast without even an in-breath? How do you know they know what they're saying? Someone like you, for me, tick all the buttons. Whatever the phrase is, you bring the emotion, you're very good at managing that. And I know there are times when you really just want to let go and go, oh my God, and but that's your training as well from being a slave, because you were programmed, hard wired to have no feelings, to have no emotions. But you're one of the most loving people I ever met. And everybody that was at our conference last year, Galactic Spiritual Informers Connection, that met you. I mean, I think you hugged 1,000 people easily. You said this year you're going to bring a clicker.
I'm going to bring a clicker. I've got a clicker. I'm going to go for it. I'm going to get a record. I hugged 180 at the last conference. 180 people. I kept track, and it was great because in the hallway at the time, I would come in. I go, okay, I was like 98, and they were like, no, come in me. I was like 99. There were people running. I was like 100, and everybody cheered. So it's kind of a neat thing. And it's
I love
exhausting.
that.
It's hugging. There's an energy exchange. Obviously, you when two people love each other, they hug. It's a bonus. But strangers, it's like if you don't know them, it's a different thing, and there's an energy exchange there. I'm not complaining, but I mean it's work.
It is. Well,
It
the
can
thing
be
is,
work, but I love people, and
yeah.
anybody that wants the people that come out to the conferences are so supportive, and I learn more from the people than I ever learned at a conference. Like the crowd is the rock star, and I just love those people, and I am somebody that cherishes human. I love humans. They're my last hope. People, you know what I mean? I love people. They're my last hope. That's it. So I'm not going to get on without other people around here. So I love people.
Mm, it's beautiful. Like you say, people that watch you, they have this kind of iconic image, some people, because of the programming of what a celebrity is, what a famous person is, and you couldn't care less about those things. You just are telling your story to help people. That's your agenda. Everybody else on that stage, Dr. Christiane Northrup, Dr. Michael Sala, Alex Collier is going to be there introducing a couple of speakers, Elena Denan, Jean-Charles Moyen, Nikki Allen, Karina Pataki, Jerry Wills, Brad Olson, Rodrigues. I think that's everybody this year, October 20th to 23rd in Orlando,
Sounds like an
Florida.
amazing lineup.
What an amazing lineup. And the single most obvious harmonic between everyone is their love for humanity, the humbleness and the harmonic that comes from them, just like you, Tony, and me too. I have the same. I'm not going to like put myself in the, like, I own it, and I know it, and we are that. And if there was a rock star, let's say, that it was up his own bar or her bar, I don't want to play with people like that, right? Because they don't fit. That program is dead. That's for the 2D people and the B-roll people, from from 2000. This is 2023, and we are a humanity that raises in the frequency of love and truth and honesty. And we got to stop fighting and stop attacking, let all that go, get on with our individual healings, and look at people like you and feel that resonance and say to themselves, do I connect with that? Can I accept that? Did any of that happen to me? Am I trying to make it fit so I can belong to something? When actually we all belong to a massive family, a family of humanity. And I see you and recognize you as a very, very special person, but also a leader, which I know is uncomfortable, and I don't care, because we're going to help you with that. But again, you need to, I don't think Jesus was running around saying, follow me, I'm fucking brilliant, I'm fabulous, and I think he came as a fully self-realized human being and was telling people like you and I and everybody else, you're amazing. Oh my God, Jesus, can do this, but I know that because you can do that too, and I think that's why he was murdered. They hung him on the cross to say to the generations after, if you try and become a fully realized human like the Christ, that's how you're going to end up. And they've done it over and over and over again. And we're rewriting the truth, the reality of our world. And like, oh my God, Karina Pataki is going to be on that stage, and she's going to be decoding the Bible in ways I have never seen another person decode the Holy Bible ever, ever, ever. We're going to have to suspend some belief systems to listen to what that lady
It's groundbreaking, and it's very hard for people to hear something out of the guide rails of religion. So religion is a track. You get in your religious and you go on the straight track. So to entertain things outside of those guide rails is very difficult for some people. It's a magnificent amount of things to think about all at once. So it takes some courage. And that's what I mean. That's what I meant when I said the crowd is the rock star. For people to tune into the number one, to find our information means they're searching. Right. So we're shadow banned, let's face it. So I'm shadow banned. When we used to put in Tony Rodrigues, I was the first 3 pages of Google back in like 2017. Now you can't find me. And so we're shadow banned. So people that are tuning in are searching for this information, for one, which means they learned a lot. And for them to make the commitment to come down and meet us and come to the conference is a whole vacation for your whole year and doing your thing. So that's like a big commitment. The people in the crowd is an act of courage to be there and to do this and entertain this. That's what I mean. They are the rock star. So I love the crowd for that reason. The people that are coming out to conferences, I would go and be a fly on the wall. I don't have to go there to be the speaker. And it's like the people in the crowd, that's where you meet the kind of birds of a feather, people that are of a mind, of a mind to seek out the real truth. And so anyhow, I don't want to go on a side tangent, but I just got to say that because I think a lot of people that haven't been to conferences yet that might have seen this don't understand what the experience is like, that it's not just the stage people, it's all the minutes in between when you're rubbing elbows against other people that are well versed and everything. It's just a great vibe.
Yeah, and you're finding your soul family. If you feel like a weirdo, I mean, like I did my whole life, suicidal, I don't belong here, let me get off this planet, I can't be here, I can't be in this body. And you go to GISIC, which we call abbreviated from Galactic Spiritual Informers Connection, and there's every other person you look at has lived that experience. They felt like a misfit too. And this is the beauty of the audience, as you said, because and many of them have equally amounts of stories that we do standing on the stage and speaking, and they're not there. Everyone has a different role. One of my friends, she's like, I'm here to hold the light. And I'm like, I'm here to bloody foghorn and tell everybody how bloody amazing they are, right? And then lead them to truth as I've experienced it and believe it, and then if you're wrong, which I have been about a couple of people, I publicly and say, I'm sorry, I got that wrong, and move along, and here we go. It's okay to screw up, on the journey. And then if we look back, like I totally fell for the spiritual, they call it the new age, which really irritates me. It's not the friggin' new age. What new age? That's a psyop, guys. And I used to espouse this and that and about the angels and this and that, although I do believe in angels very strongly, had a lot of experience with them. But spirituality was really highly hijacked, because well, we get them here in the religions the whole time, but
all of history. Yeah.
And now people are trying to realize, they're coming to the understanding that, oh my God, I can't believe I fell for that, I fell for this, fell for that. Yeah, I was the front of the line. I fell for it all. But anyway, then you can only go back inside and figure out, okay, this did happen. That was true. That was real. Ignore Nellie and Josie over there. Focus on you. Come to your own waterfall. You're shedding, you're awakening. Let's get back to Mars.
Let's jump right back.
Let's take another jump room back to Mars. So there you are, you're in orbit, you've been put to sleep, JP confirmed that, you're on Mars. What was the very first thing that happened? What are you wearing? What time of day is it? What are you seeing?
I was, I believe, still in jeans at the time when I was on the ship. And when we landed, we went into a hangar. It was a big hangar, and when we went to get off of the craft, other people got off of it. As soon as I set foot off of it, myself and a bunch of other guys that were like me, in the program that I was in, they put bags over our head. It was just like in the Cloak and Dagger movies. The soldiers came up and put bags over our head and grabbed us, and I don't think I was handcuffed. I think they gave me in front, not behind my back, but in front. They tied our hands together, and they immediately marched us to another ship, and we took off and flew to a forward base. So it completely blindfolded for that whole trip. And we flew to a forward base, and when we got off the hangar bay, we got out into a small corridor. So we got off the ship, and they walked us into out of the hangar bay, a small hangar, into a tiny corridor, and they lined us up, and then they took the bags off and explained where we were. And that was the beginning of working at a forward base there. So it was a big underground base that it looked like, on the inside, it looked like what the modern elementary schools look like now. If you look at a concrete with carpet, like some of the newer ones, the schools have come a long way since I was in school. But the new ones that are built recently, they have kind of a modern, bright decor. It was kind of built like that. So that was my first stop.
Okay, and how old
is that what you were after?
Yes, I want you to take us through the journey, because I know there are certain names that people have read in books, and this is called this and this is called that, but you physically were there, so you have the names of the stations, the bases, etc. And the skies are blue on Mars at times, are they not?
Skies were blue, the sunset was purple, and They turn red when it's windy. When a storm breaks, when it's stormy, there's a red cast to it. But basically, on a nice day, the skies are a pale blue, a very light pale blue. Mars has. It was warm. There were warm. There was a little bit of warmth. It was cold where I was, but we were told there are places where there's warmth. And trying to remember exactly, they showed us zones where the insects live, and I think that they stay in areas where it's warm. I'm not 100% sure on that. I think they stay within, like, we were on the very edge, where at the equator it gets into the 70s sometimes, and where we were was kind of above. We were in a northern, well, we were on an away base that was colder most of the time, and so much so that if we didn't get, even our environmental suits wouldn't work well at night. We had to get in at night.
Okay, we're just going to go back a little bit. So you arrive in jeans. How old are you again?
16.
Okay,
I best I can tell from my timeline work, they didn't celebrate birthdays for me, but best I can tell, I was probably 16 years old, 16
wow.
going on 17.
So you're being put into a military program on Mars. Now, when we say military program, this is paid for and run with full knowledge by Earth military, by the Earth militaries and the governments and the presidents of every country. Okay, this is another thing that people need to really get. This is sanctioned and approved. The torture of children, teenagers, taking them off planet, forcing them into whatever they feel like. So there you are on Mars. You said you were at an away base, which is another military post. So you went from one post to another. You witnessed the atmosphere. What were you going to say?
Right. Well, I was going to say that the base that I was taken to was a forward base that was both military, but it was like a research station. It was supposed to be manned by like 200 or 300 people. And when I was there were only 50 because it had been overrun by insects. The insects had come in there, and it had been breached, and so they evacuated it, and then they waited, and now our program was there. They were testing to have soldiers there with minimal training and minimal equipment. That was us. So we were just
bait,
not trained bait. The good old bounding maneuver, it's called. And no, we were minimally equipped and minimally trained, and then they would have 3 or 4 of us or 6 of us and 2 soldiers that were heavily equipped and greatly trained that were Marines there with us, and we did walking missions out on the surface. That's what was going on.
This is the episode where you had the most comfortable smart suit, military grade smart suit. Yeah.
I swear to you, I swear with all I am, that was the most comfortable clothing I've ever worn. I've never worn anything close to that. It was the most comfortable, like the shoes. It was strange. It was uncanny how it fit. I believe that when you put it on, it moved. I couldn't see it, but it was as if the suit kind of contoured on purpose and then stuck to you. So it was some other technology. The suit we were wearing, the environmental suit we wore out on, was a whole different level of technology. It wasn't like like a deep diving suit or some kind of thick suit, and that was it. It was smarter than that. It was a much more high quality uniform than anything else I've ever had since or before.
You said there was a mass slaughter from the inhabitants of Mars, the insectoids that were naturally living on Mars, and then the humans come along and they try to take over whatever. So there was a mass slaughter, and then the trick was then to throw you young men and women out, young teenagers in these great suits, but as bait to see what would happen. And horrific things did happen. Can you explain to us and describe what did these insectoids look like?
I'll get you them. I had some great artist renderings. They were smaller. They tended to all have a mandible that went like that. They had like a scissors, like a mandible that did that. So I remembered there were smaller ones that were like the size of a poodle. And to be truthful, we were briefed. We had video that they briefed us on that really wasn't very detailed, more like security camera, and you could see an insect come and go by. So that was it wasn't very detailed at all, but they were smaller poodle sized ones that were like beetles that had wings and they would fly. And they had a vertical face. Usually they had like a vertical face with eyes that went down in a row, and they had the pinchers. And then there were bigger ones, and there were even giant spider looking ones that had many eyes, like a big head and then a lot of eyes, and long, weak looking arms in the front, but it was like you couldn't get to it. And then the mantid one, that looked like a mantis. It had antennas that looked like I described in the book that they looked like olives. You know, if you took a straw and you put olives on it and stacked it up, that's what their antennas looked like. And they had a smaller mandible that did, crossed, smaller mouth. They looked smarter, and they were smart. They actually were. I did have an interaction with one on our third hiking mission that we were engaged, and we took fatalities, and I was encountered and injured. So that was actually the end of that. They canceled the program after that mission because they didn't they had a full schedule of what was going to happen. They were ramping up, how close we were getting to contact, and they said that the insectoids adapted to the strategy much faster than they were supposed to. They had a scale that was supposed to happen, and the insectoids engaged us way early before they figured it out. So they said it's not going to work. They're going to adapt, and we can't. So they canceled us.
It's fascinating, when the humanity at that level of evil and disgust and disrespect for other beings, other species, other humans, when they make land grabs and then they get their asses handed to them. I see that happening in Lahaina right now. I'm very happy about that. The indigenous is standing. It's the last kingdom of King Kamehameha, and they're pushing back. And I think everyone who thinks they can do that, whatever planet they're on, is getting a bit of a wake-up call right now. So I'm sorry that you suffered that. I'm proud of you for bringing us that information. So again, we can make comparisons of the thinking of the wrong ones, that they are welcome to go off on their own planet and just do all those things to each other, but they better stay away from our human family and our animals too. Now, let's go on to when you got injured. It was a horrific injury, but right before you were attacked by these insectoids, they could have taken your life, as they did the life of others, but they were beyond repair. What was it? How was the communication, and why weren't you slaughtered?
I blame it on completely on luck. So in the Mars gravity, getting around isn't easy. Moving around, you could do a hike. It's roughly half, I think, of the Earth's gravity. You can hike, you can walk normally, but if you try to run, it's like breaking traction. It's like spinning your wheels when you try to run, and you're not strong enough, the strength to go. So it turns into a hop, and you're not strong enough to hop and land on one leg and go to the next one. We had a chemical, like shots that were inside the suit, and there was a button. You had 3 or 4 of them. I think there were 3 or 4 of them, and you could hit a button and it would stick you in right above your hip area, and there was a needle that would poke you. And we were very it was a stimulant. It was a radical drug that made you strong for however long, 2 or 3 minutes. And we got engaged by the insects, and they were behind us and chasing us. And I hit mine first and got out of fear, and was in the lead. There was myself and 2 other soldiers like me, or support soldiers like me, and I was in the front. And then my stim started to wear off. That chemical started to wear off, and the other guys that didn't do it in the beginning passed me, and so I was in the back. So when the insectoids caught up to us, it was starting to wear off, and so I was the first one they grabbed. So I think they wanted to scan one of us, and I was the first one that they got. So they said, now we got him, kill those guys. I remember seeing a swarm, basically a swarm. Tried to count 20 of the beetles and 2 or 3 of the big spider looking ones. One grabbed me, from behind and came down and bit my arm off and held me down. And I remember seeing them kind of overtake us and then go over the dune to where the other guys were and hearing them being killed. And I forget the question.
Why were you spared?
Why was it me? I think it was because I was in the back of the line. So when they caught us, that's what I mean. So then after that, I was begging for my life. I heard that I was not a tough guy and absolutely shaken, in shock. I was in complete shock what was going on. I was not trained for this. That was the first time that I fired the gun they gave me. I had never even had target practice. So I never even had practice with the gun. They were seeing how effective we'd be with no training. Basically, it was an experimental program. And I just remember begging for my life. Please don't kill me. Please don't kill me. I don't want to die. I don't want to die. I remember saying that. And the mantid came up. It was terrifying. It was absolutely terrifying to see. It was a terrifying thing to see large insects, for one. And it came up to me, and when it got close, I was the pain went away. Like, so I was in great pain, and the pain went away, and I went into a dream state with it. And it was like being taken out of my body and standing inside a dream, standing next to the mantid in an empty room. And it started looking at places that I had been. It was searching my mind, but in a way that we were standing in it. And I remember in the dream looking down and seeing the blood that was coming out of my arm. I couldn't feel the injury, and I didn't have the memory of, I didn't have the use of my arms in the dream. But I remember when I looked down and perceived myself, I was covered in blood. And it was narrating what it saw to something else. So it was saying, okay, I see him. He's back at his base. It looks like the standard. It's that base we were at. And it was telling something else what it was seeing as it went. Then it went back to Seattle. It was showing Seattle, and in your credit, oh, this guy is, he was tortured, and it was narrating everything that it saw. And it was kind in a way. It was professional. That's the word. It behaved professionally to me. It was not emotionally, it wasn't mad at me, and it wasn't cruel. He said, look, we're going to see if I'm ordered to kill you, I'm going to kill you, but I don't want to, we'll let you go. But we're just going to have a look. That was basically the interaction with it. And I don't know, man. Maybe it was a Stockholm syndrome feeling, but I liked him after that. In this interaction, it was like, felt like he treated me like a friend.
And you've already
And
been
so he
through
did,
so
and it went all the
much.
way back. It had already went back. At the time, I had been years without any kind of real friendship. So the life in Seattle, and then in this military situation, I still had no real friendships develop. In Seattle, living there amongst the other boys, they really pitted us against each other so that you wouldn't become friends. If you did become friends, they would quickly make you regret it. So they pitted it. So it was just, friendship was a big deal to me. And it was even afterwards when I went to Ceres Colony, it was still, just because of the place you're at, you don't have freedom. You don't have, hey, I want to go catch the game. So there's nothing to really build a friendship with in my duties, with what they expected me to. So friendship was the you value the things you can't get the most, right? So that was what was valued by me, was by then. So this thing treated me like a friend, if you understand. So being at the point in my life, I was very hungry to have some kind of friendship. And this thing, even though it wasn't trying to be my friend, it was just doing its job or whatever it was doing. It didn't care. But I was like, wow, he's my friend. He didn't kill me. And it did, and it spared me. It spared my life. I woke up, the pain came back after the interaction, and he let me go. And one of the little beetles, they had an interaction, they had a discussion. You could see them talking. But I don't know what it's like. One of the beetles wanted to know what it was like to bite somebody, so it bit my foot off. And then I fell down, and we had auto tourniquets on us. We had a mechanical tourniquet that you put on like a pack of cigarettes size thing. And I put that on and tourniqueted my arm because I lost a lot of blood. And I crawled to one of the soldiers, dead soldiers, and got his and put it on my leg. And I tried to crawl back, but I was in so much pain I couldn't move. And then the soldiers came and got me. They gave me drugs and took the rest of my stim so he could use it, and carried me back. Basically, carried me all the way back for a long ways, for a few kilometers. Everything was in kilometers up there, and carried me back to base. And I remember, because I'd lost blood, I kept wanting to pass out very badly. I remember saying, "Look, I can't." He said, "Stay awake. You're going to see your purple sunset. You're going to see the purple sunset." And I said, "I can't, man. I can't." And he'd smack me. You know, he was like, he'd hit me hard. And he said, "Stay awake." He'd hit me on my head and stay awake. And I was like, I'll try my best. And, you know, I was in and out. And then as soon as we saw the doors to the base, so they were in a cave, like imagine like a rock face coming out, a cave, and then inset 20 feet inside, there were some metal doors. As soon as I could see the doors, he let me go to sleep. I went to sleep. And I woke up and I had my arm and my foot back the next morning, or whenever, however long time it was. And there were two guys there that debriefed me, asked me what the bug said. What did that man say to you? What was the bug telling you? And I told him everything as best I could. And it said for me to tell them that we're not that stupid. That was the message. He said, he told me to tell you that we're not that stupid. We're not that dumb. Like,
Right.
that's really what they said.
Right.
And
right.
that was
Getting
it.
your
I stayed in the hospital bed the rest of the day and kind of went back, and then they canceled it. And we had a better part of a month. We had weeks that we later on we had nothing to do. We just was lame duck. They canceled the program. We just stayed in our cubicles.
Tell us in brief how you got your foot
Oh, your
and
sound.
your arm back.
There it goes.
Tell us in brief how you got your foot and your arm back.
So the truth is, I don't know, really. So you know, like I said, I went to sleep at the door. They let me lose consciousness when I saw the door, and when I woke back up, I was back together that fast. The other thing was that in Inyokern, and I said this just, I think, in an interview I did yesterday. In Inyokern, part of the torture had dislocated my shoulder, my right arm. My right arm they dislocated at the shoulder. It was part of the program of like, it was one of the tortures that they had to do to some people. They put a contraption on you, like a wooden thing that had screws on it, on your arm. And some kids had a broken arm. It was to break your arm. It was part of the process. And then some people got dislocated, and my arm dislocated. So, but ever after that, for years later, in the middle of the night, I would sleep, and sometimes my arm would dislocate again. It would reoccur. It reoccurred a few times, because once it happens, it's much easier to happen again. That time after that incident on Mars, it never happened again. So whatever they did to fix me also fixed that too, is what I'm saying. So I don't know if it was a whole new body or what.
Right.
I don't know. Everybody wants to med bed. Everybody wants to fix what's wrong with them right now. That's the part of life. And I don't have one for you.
Can you take us to the names of the stations, spaceports, whatever you want to call it? Tell us what the names are, please, where they are and what they look
Not
like.
great with names. I'm not great with names. I believe that the city was Aries Prime. So Aries, I believe that was the city we went to. So what happened was, after our lame duck session, and we went for weeks on end of just doing nothing, the soldiers, there were Marines there. There were U.S. soldiers that were there, and they would come in and frequently have fun with us. They would pick on us and abuse us as well. But when they were told that we were going to Aries Prime for reassignment, they were all mad about it, because they were never sent there. They knew they were never going to go there, because it was a civilian facility. It was a city with a lot of civilians. It was like a city, not a base, not a military base. It was a city with a military presence, not a completely military base. And so they were mad about it, that they never get to go there. And we flew out. And this time I said, are we going to get blind? When they came and got us and lined us up in the same corridor on the B level, second level down was where the hangar was. They lined us up on the corridor. And I said, are we going to get, I didn't say it, but somebody else said, are we going to get the bags over our heads? And it was a relief they didn't. They let us see what was up. And we sat on it was a little bus-like craft with the seats facing inward. It was like an airplane, but it wasn't. It was like a spacecraft with wings. It had wings, and I could see the red sky, the red tint of the planet out the window. And we went up to like a high altitude and flew straight back to that. And when we got out, it was Aries Prime. And when we got out of the hangar, we went through a hallway, like a long glass hallway that went to you could see the hangar. And when you went inside through the doors, it was a dome. It was a glass dome that was under the dirt. So on the other side, imagine like a geodesic dome that's made out of glass, but on top of the dome is dirt. You could see the red dirt piled up like the straight. And at the very top of the dome, you could see the sky coming through. And you could see dirt blowing by, the wind blowing dust. And it looked like a shopping mall. There was a water feature. There was in the center, there was a pool with water, with like a waterfall thing, a water fountain. And there were palm trees that were planted. There were plants and carpet. I think it was a blue carpet they had, and it was a very flowing kind of architecture. And an officer got us. We got out. There was a guy waiting there, and he met us. I think we got split up. There were about 12 of us, and we all flew at the same time. And then they took some of us right then. We were split up. Said, these 4 are going with you. And a guy came and he took us over and sat us down. It looked like an airport. When you're waiting at your gate at the airport, it was just like that, but by the water feature. He said, you guys sit here. And he reported to a girl in a window. There was a window there. And he said, just wait here until you're called on. And we sat there for like a better part of an hour, felt like an hour. And they called us and took me to then that was my comfortable room. I finally got put into my room that put me to sleep, and I had my own bathroom. That's what happened. And that was when we left there were several hallways that broke off of that big dome, and you could see another dome through the one big hallway. You could see that it was a dome on the other side, like a big area. And then there were hallways that broke off. It looked like going into like a hotel hallway. And we walked for a long ways. It was a network of like underground buildings, basically. But it was a big place, and very aesthetically pleasing. It was that base was different. And the forward base was actually not ugly, not like the moon. The moon bases or Crampton was not good looking. Every time we ever visited the moon base, it was like very small and Spartan looking. But the Mars place where I was at the Aries Prime, it's terrible with names. And in the book, we fudged a lot of names in the book. So I renamed a lot of people. My next book, I'm going to rename a lot of people. If you want to be in my book, Dani, which I am going to talk about GSIC, I hope, when I get to the end of it, I will get your permission. But people that I am going to rename a lot of people in the next book. Just I think legally that's the end around telling a story like what's going to happen. But in Ceres Colony Cavalier, I changed a lot of names, like the captain's name, Zogler, like that wasn't really his name. It's like a best guess. I'm really terrible with remembering the names of it. So, but anyhow, went in there and got my apartment and stayed. And then the next morning, a guy in a beret with a gun. It looked like he was it looked like a Marine or an officer, or a soldier in a beret, came and got me when I woke up, and it took me. It wasn't a very long walk, maybe 4 or 5 minutes to a school, and there was a tall gray ET that was very arrogant and big head, and he was pretty tall. He was 6 feet tall probably, and sat me down and plugged me into a computer. And that's when I began my school career. And I was there for probably 6 months doing that every day. I would go there and be tested and sit in front of the screen, and it would interact with me. And then I would go straight back to my room, and I'd have a half hour or so, and I would be put to sleep, and I'd wake up and it was the same thing. But it was comfortable. there was no, the teacher was abusive mentally, but that was minor compared to what I'd been through. It was like not a big deal. But it was comfortable in the fact that I didn't have to endure other soldiers or people picking on me, or there was a brief little respite of safety there when I was going through that.
It's just so amazing hearing everything. And I know that this conversation between you and I, we've not danced around, but touched on many different areas of, and obviously it's partly conversation, it's partly interview, it's a mishmash of, what you and I decide we're going to do because we're mates. Now, I think we need to do a part 2. I do. And I want everybody watching this in the live chat or in the comments to put the number 1 if you would like a part 2 on these subjects, because we're getting rushed. I'm meeting with Dr. Sala.
No, that's fine. Yeah, we've been doing this for a while. Yeah, I want to read the chat too. So
Yeah,
I love the live chats.
Totally. So we'll do a part 2. I'm sure everyone's going to want, because Tony, honestly, you're where it's at, Mars colony, lunar operations, Ceres, colony, telling us about the Deutsch. I mean, I don't know who knew about anything happening other than inside the military. He was publicly sharing all of that there's so many German influences in Ceres. And I do want to talk about the abstract misery, what it was like to be living in a reptilian-owned dystopian tyrannical, because that's what they've got planned for Earth. It's not going to happen, but people need to get a bit of a shake now. Stop fighting each other.
It is kind of, well, now that I look around and you see really in the last year, things changed. Mm-hmm. They're unfolding things at lightning speed now. And I look at the way things are taking shape, and I'm like, man, that's exactly what we were living like on Ceres, what they've got planned. And to say you'll own nothing and be happy is a misnomer, because most of the civilians on Ceres were not happy.
Right. So, and when I read this,
I would say that, especially the women.
Reading this, I'm
especially
like,
the women.
This is it. You've lived what they've got planned for us. So this is no joke. And so we'll do part 2. Okay, so let us have your tatty bye for now words to the beautiful audience.
Beautiful audience, I love you guys. And the conference is coming up. I got to get to work on my slideshow, but I went and got film footage in Seattle, and I am going to Kern in the first week of October to get some film that I'm going to share with the audience, and we're going to talk about all of that stuff and Project Star Maker. And live at GSIC, I'm going to present information. I'm going to kind of touch on what I'm working on, some of the technology that I'm working on, the learning software stuff, and that book, which is a wild ride. And just basically, it's going to be easy this year, because all I got to do is talk about what happened since the last GSIC, which was life-changing. My whole life has changed. It was an amazing thing. I'm getting goosebumps talking about being back at GSIC again. That was an amazing conference. Been in some good conferences this year, but GSIC is its own vibe, its own animal. Other conferences have let me grow as a person, but GSIC changed me completely. My whole life turned for the better. And so I'm better. I can't wait to go back. Thank you for having me back this year. It's an honor, Dani.
Oh my God, Tony.
You put on an amazing show. You do. You really do.
It's everybody together. And you have to look after your speakers. You have to pay them, house them, take care of them, honor them, because without you guys, there would be no GSIC. And then the audience, again, the same love, respect, honor everybody together. And that creates absolutely life-changing experiences. And you come with solutions. And, it is a disclosure conference. We can't share everything here, obviously, but also going into the background, your time, who you are, who you've been, and what you've brought in these conversations really does fill and nourish people, who are coming to the second GSIC, but also those that aren't, that they get more of Tony, they get more understanding as they and their own cellular memories awaken. It's so important to do these things. So thank you again, Tony Rodrigues. And to you guys out there, sending you love from my heart to yours. Can't wait to see you this week with Tony again and others. I'm doing Dr. Michael Sala. He's interviewing me in a few minutes, and it's going to be a really another very interesting week. So we will see you soon. Lots of love, everyone.
Beautiful. Love you guys.
Okay.